Hey guys, Steve Yu here. I'm actually gonna take you through something that I learned recently. This is with Infusionsoft, or I guess the Keep software, KEAP, but Infusionsoft CRM is what most people know. Um, there's when you're building your own custom app, you want to interact with Infusionsoft CRM, and you want to do an OAuth process. There are several ways to authorize and authenticate with it, but these days a lot of people use OAuth. So this is what I'm going to show you here. Let's get right to it. I have my sample app here. Let's pull up Visual Studio 2019. So the key here, alright, so what we have here is the first thing you're going to want to do is to authorize. There's basically two-step process. You're going to go call for an auth token. You're going to say, I would like an authorization token so that I could provide all this information and then get a access token, which is what you need in your API calls. So two-step process. First thing, all those URLs will be available. On the site. And let me just bring that up. That's going to be, should all be in developer.infusionsoft.com. You can go here, log in. You'll create an account, and then here you have your client ID, client secret. Those are important pieces. But then in the documentation right here in the REST docs, you'll find everything you need to get through. So for instance, here's the OAuth guide, and then you can just follow these steps here. But let me take you through this because I don't want to take too long on this video, get you guys the information here. So basically you're going to call authorize. So if you can visualize, this is an ASP.NET MVC application, and so we have some endpoints here and some razor views. But what we're doing is, you go, well, that's great, I'm going to call an endpoint, and that endpoint is this. I'm going to sign in Infusionsoft, authorize, provide this information for my OAuth, and say the response type of code, which is listed in the documentation. That means that give me back an authorization code, and I will grab that from the JSON, then use it for my access token call. So you think you could just get that and return it? Well, the way that it works, and it's very similar to how GitHub does things. So if you have a personal GitHub account, strongly recommend trying that with your own personal. Just build a real small app, get that stuff back. Infusionsoft almost follows it to the T. Maybe not the type of error handling that GitHub has. Like if you're missing a piece of information, GitHub will tell you, like, it'll return back and say, like, you're missing this piece of information literally in the thing. So it's really helpful. But once you get that, I feel that this will be a breeze. I started to struggle, and I went through GitHub API, and I thought, wow, they probably do it like some of the other successful folks, and of course they did. So GitHub is very close to it, probably amongst other standard OAuth implementations. So here we go. So you call this, and what happens is you'll come back. You'll get the response back, and then you'll have to redirect to another URL. I'm sorry. You would make the call to your API right here, and then you would redirect to this URL. And then when you do that, the response there right here is a redirect URI. Then it will take you to what we have here. So I put it all in my config, and what this is it's gonna redirect to my page, my authenticate page, and so to my authenticate razor view. And then what it'll do in the response, it will give that actual auth token, the authorization code, and it will append it into the URL, like query parameters. And what you do is when you redirect here in the MVC, you grab it right out of the URL. And so it's kind of like a query parameter. You could just grab it. And then after you do that, that's your very first step. You're going to take that and then since you've went to the razor view here, it will MVC, you can say the exact query parameter. This code will actually be what's in that URL. And so now you can just grab that stuff on the fly as you're in this authenticate MVC action, and then now you can make your token call here. So here's the authenticate URL. You provide this stuff. I made the dictionary here for purposes of converting it to JSON for a JSON payload on the post. And then you can go ahead and do this post async, and here's the URL, and then you send the payload along with it. After, it will check if it's got a success code, and then afterwards it'll just read the JSON string. And notice that I did put, this is kind of important, if you put this here, you go ahead and into Postman, or you look into DHC, well, I guess now it's called Talend. It was called the REST client after a while, but whatever you want, your REST client, and you're doing your calls, you'll notice that, if you don't put this accept, it'll come back in a weird format, and what's going to happen is then you'll just have to take extra steps to parse through. But if it comes back in JSON, we leverage the technology, and you could just pick apart the JSON with, not like dot notation, but you can just, actually it probably would be some sort of dot notation. So after that, then here's the response. I deserialize it, and then just kind of with strongly typed languages, you're gonna put it into something. If you look at this, it's just gonna grab. Let me go ahead and click that. Try to go through slow. Make sure you know exactly the steps I'm going through. I don't want to just assume. If I go to definition here, the only thing I'm concerned about right now for my proof of concept is the access token. So it's actually, this has got to match exactly what that JSON key is, and then it will just kind of suck that into here, so you get that piece of information. So let's go back, and then after that, what I'll do is I'll just stick it into the cookie, and then go ahead and you'll redirect to the index, which is kind of your main page. And then you're ready to go, and you have that token in your cookie. So let's go ahead and show you that real quick. I'd like to separate out the API calls into a separate video, like verification of your REST hooks. Those are additional things on top of this, but first things first. So let's go ahead and run this, and I'm gonna actually show you. Okay, let's go ahead and set some breakpoints here. So here's our local host, and you're thinking, I know what you're thinking already. You're thinking, I'm communicating with an external thing. Well, I'm sorry, that's for REST hooks, so ignore I said that. But here you go. If I go and show event types, and what this is making a call to event types API. So if I look here, let's go back to here, documentation. And if you look down, the whole point of my exercise is I want to subscribe to REST hooks, which I'll cover in a different video. But basically, you'll say the thing I'm doing right now is looking at the event types, just to use the access token and make a call to here. So you go ahead and do this, and then you get back list of like contact.add and all these pieces of information that you'll need. This is kind of the sample. You just get a whole bunch of strings in an array. So that's what I want here, but when I do this, you'll get no reference here. So, and of course this is a POC, and really what it is there's no access token right here. There's no access token. So let's go ahead and do that authenticate stuff that we were talking about. If I was back at index right here, what we can do, and I still have to build it in, but I want to get you guys this information. So actually, remember the authorized endpoint. You hit that, so that provides the information. This is exactly what it's going to look like. And post any comments down below in the video. I'll get right to it, because I just want to get you this information, and then we can, I could have probably done a better job preparing for this, but I want to show you the flow, and this is what it looks like, because when you know what it looks like, you know exactly if you're on the right path. So I'm going to log in. So it has my client ID and stuff, and then it logs in. Okay, so let's see. So that should have gone back. Okay, yeah, so let's see. Auth URL, redirect URI. Okay, so the redirect URI, okay. This has to be something valid. So what do I mean by that? What I'm defining here in the redirect URI, and there's one redirect URI, because through this whole two-step process, what's happening is it's going to go and say, and it's going to use this redirect URI to compare. So it goes first time, gets the authorization code, comes back, and then next time it goes, it's going to send the redirect URI again as even a check that you don't realize, but it does it. The redirect URI has to be the exact same thing. So you're just going to use one redirect URI in all of your calls. Your authorization code call, make sure that that's one thing, and then the same redirect URI needs to be sent over as verification when you get your access token, and then that's how it'll work. Sometimes it'll come back with I think it'll just be some sort of mismatch, and that could be stopping you from getting your access token. Okay, so that's pretty key, along with this other basic information here. Okay, so let's go back to here. So that let's try this one more time here. Okay, so you're at home index. Let's do authorize. It's probably gonna, okay, so it's gonna come back here because there's no valid redirect URI, and this is kind of jumping around a little bit, but had I have set it to something that was live, that was exposed, you could go ahead and it would work. So this is what I did, was I used ngrok to expose something. Later on down the line, you'll see that you have to verify a hook. So I'll expose my local host for this exercise so that my REST hook can get verified. And I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I just wanted to voice that. So what I do, I should have had a simpler example, but if I started my ngrok tunnel, and all it does is expose a localhost endpoint. So you're running Visual Studio localhost IIS, IIS Express spins up. Here's something here. What it does is then it will give you a URL here that's actually live to the world here. And so you could do this for testing purposes. Make sure you shut down your tunnel after. Probably not most, but this is for development. So if you grab this, you got the HTTP and the HTTPS, those are in there. So now you have your tunnel. So every time you make changes, you can just start up your app and it'll use this same this forwarding URL. So if I go back here and if I punch in that, and I could probably streamline this a little bit. We'll make that here and make that here as the base URL. Make sure you save that. Let's stop that. Okay, spin that up again. Now this will be a valid redirect URI. So watch what happens in your development. So something that's going to mimic the whole process, without having to deploy to a dev server and all that stuff. But I'll show you some complications with that later. So now if you come in, remember that if you hit this will break because we have no access token defined. So let's go back. And now if I do home authorize, hopefully this will, okay, so that's, That's not correct. Let's see if it's hitting this. Yeah, it's hitting this, and then it's redirecting. You can see if we go, it'll redirect to the authentication. Okay, interesting. So this is what should happen, and now it will go to, it might be caching, it might have been that, but so it goes to that the authorize, gives all this information and stuff. The redirect URI is right here. Some state, an extra piece of a verification, and you can click. Now it forces you to manually go in here and click allow, and then when I do that, now it comes in here. Okay, so that part cannot, you probably could curl that part to make it all seamless, but the way it was intended to work was that it was supposed to have manual intervention, so you know it's real, kind of a security thing. So now I'm going to do the token call. Look at here. Here's this. It grabbed the code, the authorization code here. And remember the thing said DOI on the state, just another piece to verify. Grab that, uses that down here. See, I'm hovering over these. And I have some client ID, client secret, the grant type, which in the documentation they'll tell you exactly which grant type to use, because they're building out this OAuth to be more robust, but this is kind of new, building out the OAuth part of it. Redirect URI needs to be the same, remember, otherwise it's going to fail and not give you the auth token. Let's check here. If you continue that, now you're here. Okay, its success is true, so it made the post and sent over the content. You can take a look here. Okay, so you're not going to see that, but let's see like the payload here. This is what's going to send over in a JSON payload. Then now let's get the response. Let's just kind of... Okay, sorry about that. You hit F10 to actually stop the recording, so when I went through and did, you know, your F10 through to step through, it actually stopped it. So let me just use this stuff here. So we stepped over, and now here comes the response, and we're going to put it into that object that grabs the access token. Let's go ahead and see that. Now if you look at this response here, you see I grabbed the access token and we're in business. Now we have it, store it into the cookie right here, and then let's put it into the browser, and then now we will continue, redirect to our home. Now if I do this, there won't be an error because I have that cookie. Now it gives back all the information, so it's reaching out now to that endpoint, the Infusionsoft API, saying I want the events that I can see, like here are all the events that you can choose from. So that's it. That's that part. In the next, check out the other videos for the progression of it. We'll already have our auth access token, and then we'll use that to make our calls to verify. Now I'll focus on verifying the hook, so then I'll talk about REST hooks. So that's it for now.